Virginia Port Authority, Mr. Edwards, Ms. Vick, Ms. Nelson.
Present.
Thank you. GDOT, Mr. Bridge, Mr. Totten,
Here.
Mr. Riblett. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. I'm going to skip over welcome and introductions, and we're going to move on to the next item because we do have a request for remote participation. Mr. Parsons, Mr. Gregory, could you please read the language for the motion, please?
Yes, sir. The motion is to confirm that, actually, there's language.
Yeah. It is confirm that the chair's decision to approve or disapprove the member's request to participate from a remote location was in conformance with the policy for remote participation of members, and the voice of the remotely participating member can be heard by all persons at the primary meeting location. And it's Ms. Nelson, and also I'm just now promoting Mr. Reverend Nelson, two panelists.
So Mr. Nelson and Ms. Nelson, correct?
That's the best figure.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the chair's decision to allow them to remotely participate.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. We'll move on with our agenda. We'll move on to item 2, the consideration of amendments to the action meeting agenda. Are there any members there or any amendments to the agenda today? All in favor of the agenda, vote by saying aye. Aye. We'll move on to item 3, approval of the December 1st, 2023 Central Virginia Transportation Authority meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? So moved. Second. We'll move to second. All in favor?
Aye. Abstain, I wasn't present, Mr. Chair.
We have one abstention. We'll move to item 4, the open comment period. Mr. Scott, Ms. Scott, or Mr. Parsons, do we have any public comments or via email or online?
We've not received any requests.
No requests were received, so we'll move on to the chairman's report. For today's chairman's report, I would like to acknowledge our new member appointees joining us for the first meeting. I appreciate everyone here allowing me to introduce them. If I take a moment of personal privilege. I'll begin first with my friend, Mr. Sean Davis, who joins us from Hanover County, representing the Henry District. He's a graduate of Campbell University and a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. Mr. Davis has served on the Hanover County Board of Supervisors since 2011, serving as the chairman of the board in 2014, 2018, and 2021. Let's welcome Mr. Davis. Mr. Nelson he's joined us remotely today, but he joins us from Henrico County, representing the Varina District. He's a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University and Virginia Union University School of Theology. Mr. Nelson is currently the pastor at Six Mount Zion Baptist Church. He's chair of the Greater Richmond Transit Company and the chair of the Henrico Board of Supervisors. And as the Varina District Supervisor since 2011, Mr. Nelson has served as the Henrico Board Chairman in 2016 and 2019. Let's welcome Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. John Moyer joins us from New Kent County, representing the District 2, which includes the precincts of Quentin and Kentwood. Mr. Moyer may be new to the Board of Supervisors in New Kent, but he has been behind the scenes as a member of the New Kent Planning Commission, where he serves as chairman for 2 years and was heavily involved in both the steering committee for the adoption of New Kent's strategic and comprehensive plans. Let's welcome Mr. Moyer. Last but not least, we want to welcome Mr. McClung, who joins us from Powhatan County, representing District 2, the precinct of Powhatan Station. He's a longtime resident of Powhatan County, new to the county's Board of Supervisors. Mr. McClung has raised a family in Powhatan while witnessing the county's major transition from community with a small town atmosphere to a locality more than twice its size right now. He touts the success of Powhatan County, striking the appropriate balance between growth and preservation. And given that view, I suspect he will fight for that right moving forward. Let's welcome Mr. McClung as well. He's not here today. With that, we'll move on to item 6, and that's the Capital Region Airport Commission update. And we have Mr. Perry Miller with us today to provide that update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there a clicker? Oh, you got it, thank you. Let me just start off by saying thank you for the invitation to get surprise you of your airport during Commissioner Carroll's leadership. He asked that we come here. I guess when he came on board, he saw all the wheels moving. So it'd be great to give you guys an update of what we do and, you know, how we've been faring since COVID. So I'll do an introduction of my team who's here. Basil DeSumo is our Chief Financial Officer. He's the say no guy. And let's see, and got with me Troy Bell, who is the person responsible for ensuring that you have all the direct flights to all the destinations we have here. And our Chief Operating Officer is Mr. John Rutledge. He's the one that builds everything that always gets, he doesn't get a no all the time from Mr. DeSumo, but those are the guys that get things done. So the Capital Region Airport Commission, if you go to the next slide, you may be aware of this, but I'll just kind of give you an appraisal. It was formed in 1975 by the General Assembly of Virginia, and it's comprised of 4 jurisdictions: Hanover County, the City of Richmond, Chesterfield County, and Henrico County. There are 14 members. In other words, I have 14 bosses, personalities to please, one of which is Commissioner Carroll here. But the executive committee is comprised of James Holland from Chesterfield, Charles McFarland from the City of Richmond, Susan Dibble from Hanover, the secretary, and I guess one of the new commissioners here, Tyrone Nelson, is the treasurer there. I'm the president and CEO of the Richmond International Airport. I was hired by the commission in August of 2019, just before COVID hit. I didn't bring it, but you know, I was helped navigate us through the turmoil. The commission has about 2.1 billion economic impact on the Richmond region. We employ approximately, well, we're responsible for the employment of approximately 16,000 people in this region. This is a little bit dated. We probably need to get an update. I'm sure it's changed since then. This was done by the Department of Aviation in, when was that?
2018.
Not 1918, 2018. Next slide, please. When I first arrived, we developed a mission statement, a vision statement, solidified our values. In other words, we created a strategic plan to give direction to the ship that we were steering. We call it Serve 2025. And basically the mission is we provide all customers with an exceptional experience through one of 3 ways: convenience, innovation, and excellence. We'll demonstrate how we've been living up to that at one of the last slides that I present. Our vision is to move people, business, and commerce to advance the Richmond region. I think we've been doing that. Our values are listed there. You can see that. And we use this as a guidance to all of our employees to help them understand how their contributions help move the needle in our organization. Next slide, please. Moving the needle is not easy, and demonstrating how our employees move the needle is not easy. So we made it simple for them by organizing our strategic priorities in an acronym. It's POWER. The P stands for passenger. We want to enhance the passenger experience. O is the on-airport community. We launched an on-airport community that comprised every entity that works in or around our airport campus to establish connections and collaboration, ensuring that we were living up to our mission and vision. Workplace, for the W, stands for renewing our workplace culture and practices so we can ensure that ideas are being generated from the ground up. E stands for efficiencies. We initiate facilities and operations that are innovative and efficient. And the R stands for RV, a community at large, where we seek to move businesses and engage the community. Next slide, please. We had some recent accolades that you may be aware of. In other words, we were living up to our mission in such a way that we were being able to be recognized by the Virginia Green Association. We've been getting this award long before my arrival, so I attribute all of this to the great work the team is doing, which accentuates all the work we've been doing towards ensuring that we're making significant contributions to, what's that word? What's the word I'm looking for? Sustainability. Oh, gosh, that's a big word. Sustainability, thank you. The Global Biorisk Advisory Council, which is the next accolade, GBAC, is an organization that certifies your standards, operating procedures to ensure that you're using the right methodology and the right chemicals to ensure that your environment is hygienically clean. We received that recognition right after COVID started. We still maintain that system of using chemicals and cleaning today. We received a Great Place to Work award, 2-3 years straight. And just last year, you may have read that we received the most efficient airport in North America in our category. Great accolade to receive. Our financial acumen has been recognized by Moody Financial Institute, and also the Regional Tourism Group also gave us a champion award for our contributions to advance the region with regard to tourism. So next up will be Troy to talk about how we've been recovering from COVID-19, and he'll be followed by John, who will discuss how we've been building a better way for you to fly.
Members of the authority, good morning. Good morning. All right, Mr. Miller made reference to the COVID-19 pandemic, and his timing was he comes in August and we're riding high, we're setting records, and we continue to do that until about February of 2020. So 4 years ago from today, the world's looking pretty good. I think we heard a little rumbling about some problems, health problem in China. We had no idea what was coming. Next slide, please. This kind of shows what happened. If you go all the way to the left, that's our starting point of it's the low point for COVID. We were down about 96%. We went from having more than 300,000 passengers a month at the facility to April that year, 13,000. I could look around the parking garage and I knew who all the cars belonged to, let's put it that way. Now, we've come back. You can see it was gradual, but for the last couple of years, we have trended ahead and have recovered traffic faster than the national average. This shows on the far right scale, we're about 10 points ahead of what we're seeing nationally. So the growth, the recovery has been much faster at RIC. As we had the fortune of adding new service, good fortune of that, we take a look at what our service area is. It's a good overlay of the area that Plan RVA covers, and then beyond that, we look at this. Our service area, if you had to define it, it's about a 2-hour drive from the airport, and it's in markets where we have at least a 20% share of travel. So that's why we can stretch this out to Charlottesville. In some cases, more people from Charlottesville are traveling out of RIC than they are out of that hometown airport. Same story over in Newport News. We see a lion's share, of course, out of Williamsburg. But we really, north and south, we go from the North Carolina line on up to really the southern point of Fredericksburg or that general area, Stafford. So it's a large region. If you look at it that way for air service, over 2.5 million people. And it represents nearly a third of Virginia's population. As far as recovery, we look at 3 key metrics at the airport. We look at passenger volume. We look at cargo handled at the airport, and then also operations. And operations are simply takeoffs and landings, so it's aircraft activity. This first slide is about total passengers. So we take a look going back to 2017, and you can see 3.6, 4.08, 4.38. That's our record and that we reported, and Mr. Miller was here at that time. But then the next year with COVID coming in March, everything dropped. So we are right back to a point where it's like we hadn't seen this probably in this century with 1.7 million travelers. And then gradually started to come back to the point where in 2023, we established a new annual year record over 4.76 million, nearly 4.8 million travelers at the airport. We haven't even announced that at a commission meeting yet, so you're getting a heads up although I think our members here are aware of that. So, new passenger record 23. Next slide, please. Cargo, you can see that we were humming right along somewhere between 130, 140 million pounds, and then the pandemic hit, and it really had an opposite effect. Whereas passenger traffic dropped off for a period, for cargo had picked up. A lot of that had to do with e-commerce. A lot of it had to do with the arrival of Amazon on a very timely basis. They started in June of 2020 with the pandemic, and so our numbers took off right away on the cargo side. We were bringing in important supplies and equipment and fueling e-commerce to the region at a time where a lot of people didn't want to go out to shop, understandably. That numbers continued to climb. And so with 2023, yet another record. It's the first time ever the airport's been over 200 million pounds of cargo in a calendar year. So 206 million pounds. So that's a nice number. And then finally for operations, you can see on the far right that we are nearly back to where we were pre-pandemic, and essentially we're back and then some. And the difference why I can say that is we see an upgauging. So the commercial carriers that provide passenger service, most of them have increased the size of the aircraft that they used to serve the market. There are not so many 50-seat regional jets in the market, where at one point that was a dominant aircraft type for us. For now, most of the aircraft are over 100, and we have many that are well over 150. So we're getting into good-sized metal at this point. So again, a recovery, passengers, cargo, and operations, all looking really good. When you look at the route map, it is interesting to see what we looked like in 2019 before the pandemic. So we had good service. It's kind of a nice spider pattern. To the west, though, you'll note that we go no further than Denver. And that had been a major get for the community when United started Denver, but that had been 2016. We saw some smaller announcements. We saw Punta Gorda come on with Allegiant and some other things that happened, but that's it pre-pandemic. Today, when you look at 2024, the route maps changed considerably. We have added a great deal of service to the west. And it's not just one carrier, but beyond Denver, we have today Phoenix, we have Las Vegas, served by two airlines, both Breeze and Spirit. Los Angeles with Breeze as a nonstop. I have a daughter in Los Angeles, and this has been a wonderful ad for us. That had nothing to do with trying to get this route, but we're just happy that's here. And then San Francisco. So we've been fortunate to see that. In terms of top market, that's okay. Top markets, it really wouldn't surprise you that we have some strong business markets at the top, like Atlanta, like New York, Boston, Chicago, and that. But what might surprise you is the rise of Florida markets. So this is when people, it used to be, there's business and there's leisure. Well, now it's blended, and the term leisure comes up that we didn't hear before the pandemic. So we see a lot of folks, they might go to a conference in Orlando, but the family goes with them and they stay over a bit. So we see a lot more Florida traffic. We also see a lot more traffic from Florida coming to visit here. I think they looked at the insanity of all the tourists in Florida and said, I'm going to go somewhere and have a nice, relaxing time with good food and plenty to do, and I'm going to go up to RVA. So we've seen traffic both ways grow on those routes for Orlando and the Fort Lauderdale area as well. Internationally, if you look at the markets, we have a significant portion of our travelers that are doing something called the domestic portion of an international journey, DPIJ. So they may fly from Richmond to a gateway hub and then connect. So these numbers, when you look at both the domestic and the international, it's showing destinations. It's not showing the connecting point. So if you look at it, we really like the Caribbean. We've got Cancun, Montego Bay, and right on down there with San Jose, and then Punta Cana on there. We also have some affinity for Canada. You can see Toronto is high on that list. And then further down, we've got Montreal. So this is a real focus area for us. John will talk about some facility enhancements that we have made to help facilitate that. And with no further ado, I will turn it over to John Rutledge, our Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you, Troy. Good morning. Go to the next slide, please. As a follow-on to what Troy just talked about, we have an existing FIS facility, Federal Inspection Service Facility of Customs and Border Protections. 4 or 5 years ago, CBP said, no way, no how, we're going to screen passengers out of there because it is outdated. So we've undertaken a project to totally renovate the Federal Inspection Service facility, which would allow the airport to have the ability to screen international commercial passenger service. The project is underway and is substantially complete. We hope to have it completed and upfit by Customs and Border Protection within the next 60 to 90 days. So then that facility would be available. And as just to add on to that, we get a substantial number of diversions at the airport because of weather in the Northeast. And some of those are international diversions, which this is a major inconvenience not to have a facility that would allow for the screening and clearing of those passengers on the diversion. Also, if you fly out of Richmond, you know we've got two security checkpoints. We've got Concourse A, Concourse B. If you fly on Delta, you go out of Concourse B. If you fly on American, you go out of Concourse A. One of the hindrances of that, if you perhaps get a flight change or you come in on an aircraft that you need to then catch another flight out, you have to come out of security on checkpoint B, if you're on B, if you go into A, and then pass through security again. And our plan is to consolidate those checkpoints into one checkpoint. If you walk into the airport, come up that second set of escalators and look forward to the atrium and the Applebee's, that consolidated security checkpoint will be right there in that connector portion between the top of the second set of escalators and that atrium area. We did an analysis, 10 to 12 lanes will carry us through about 2050. And with the increase in technology, it may be even further out than that. One of the advantages, it's an efficiency issue for us and for TSA. If you notice, if you fly out of there early in the morning, there is a substantial rush prior to 7 o'clock. And there can be substantial lines from both checkpoints. This can even that out and make less of a wait for folks. Also, in low times, TSA has to man both checkpoints, and they may have one flight go out at 9 o'clock at night. Somebody on Delta goes out at 10 o'clock at night. This way, they don't have to man both checkpoints. They can man one. It makes it much more efficient. And it also allows for the latest technology to be implemented once we do this. Our plan is to go to design on this. We're doing tentative design on it right now. Design complete hopefully by the end of this year and start into construction early next year or spring of next year. Probably, it's a pretty complicated phased project. So we're probably 18 to 24 months with total completion. But it could be phased where we get part of it done and move the checkpoints, consolidate the checkpoints, and then move forward. Some things we've got on the horizon. We are relocating our fixed-based operator to the east side of the airport. If you're not aware what a fixed-based operator is, they handle commercial and corporate aviation. In our case, they also fuel commercial aircraft. We have two FBOs on the airport right now, Richmond Jet at the north end and Millionaire at the south end. Our master plan calls for the eventual, if demand dictates, construction of a future parallel runway, which would eliminate, Richmond Jet would be in the path of that footprint of that runway. So their leases expire in 2026, so the decision was made with our master plan to move those operators over to the east side of the airport. We've received proposals on that. We're evaluating and hope to make a decision within the next 60 days on that operator and start that process. The other, number two, is the Virginia Army National Guard Army Aviation Support Facility. That's a helicopter squadron at the airport. They're at the south end of the airport. Once again, their facility now lies in the footprint of that future runway. Their lease expires in 2032. They own property on the east side of Beulah Road where you see that number 2 is. And they have already got plans, they're in the design to move that facility to the other side. They desire a connection with a taxiway to the airport. So for their fixed wing aircraft, their helicopter squadron, but they want to access. We're working with Henrico, with FAA, with the Virginia Department of Aviation to try to facilitate the relocation of Beulah Road. Because the FAA has said, no way, no how, you're going to cross Beulah Road with an aircraft, with a stoplight or whatever, or barricades, whatever it might be. So we're working with them right now to take care of that. Their lease expires, I believe I said, in 2032. So they've got some time, but they're looking to do that as quickly as they can. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any, and number three, let me go back. Number three is what that future relocation of Beulah Road would look like. It would join LaFrance Road, go around the backside of a piece of property that we own. We control that right of way and would be able to donate that right of way. So that's on the drawing board. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for our airport commission? So when do the international trips to across the pond start?
Closing our crystal ball, we knew you'd ask that, but we don't know yet.
Okay, all right. I saw a news report out there, and I was like, is this a rumor? Is there any fact to this?
No,
You know,
but
I'm bragging to my friends in Seattle and all that. Like, you know,
I can tell you that we've had airlines ask us about when we will be finished with the international facility. So whenever we finish that, I don't think it'll be long after that we'll see a flight or two flying from Richmond.
any further questions, anyone? All right, we'll move to item 7 then. The CVTA Executive Director's Report, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to keep this brief. There is an item listed in the agenda, but before we get there, I wanted to, again, welcome all the new members, and we are putting together a pretty comprehensive orientation package, and I'm going to be reaching out individually, especially to the new members, but I don't want to limit it there, to schedule orientation sessions where I'll come out and meet with you or the delegation from the jurisdiction and just go through all things CVTA. So be looking for that communication from me. The other item under 7 is a member profile form, and I'm actually going to ask Ms. Scott to go over what her expectations are of all of us.
Absolutely. I linked this in the agenda. It's a fillable PDF if anyone wants to fill it out that way and save it and email it back to us. Or you can just fill out these paper forms. But we have a new member profile form for all of our boards. Between the CVTA and the Policy Board and the Plan RDA Commission, we had, I believe, 14 seats that now have new members. And so we have a new profile form. We're trying to get better about what information we share. There's a place on here to indicate which committee meetings and board meetings we want to receive calendar invites and invitations for. Some people on the Policy Board like to receive the CVTA meeting notifications and others don't. So we want to be able to start tailoring things to what everyone wants instead of sending everything to everyone. You have one question about. So if anybody has any questions about it, let me know, but we're just, again, trying to update our contact information and get a little bit better at what we send to everyone.
Mr. Chair, one more item. Sure. And Mr. Carroll may want to get into further discussion on this under the Finance Committee update, but just to inform everybody, we do have bond counsel under contract. We are already starting to work with them on lining things up for the actions that the authority may want to consider down the road. We had a great kickoff call earlier this week with PFM and Kaufman Knowles and Mr. Gregory to just kind of start talking about all the things that we need to do to line up our actions so that it's smooth sailing for the authority when decisions need to be made.
All right, that's it. Any questions for the Executive Director? Seeing none, we'll move on to the action items of the agenda. For the first item, I'll turn it over to Mr. Parsons again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Starting on page 9 in the agenda packet, and Sid's going to put it on the screen as well. This is something that we are using for our round 3 regional project reviews and an upcoming public hearing. What you see before you is a summary of all of the applications, the project applications that were received for round 3 regional funds. The focus that I would like to provide for you today is on the right-hand side of the table. So there are 7 pages from 9 through 15. part of our required framework for how we evaluate these regional projects and award funds is to make sure that the project estimates are as close to real as possible. So there are a number of steps involved in the tax consideration of these project requests. When the applications were submitted back in September, each applicant included a project estimate. So that's what you'll see under original applicant estimate and request, right in the middle of the table. So the total amount of the project was shared with us in the application, and then the requested amount of funding for that project. As part of the review and validation process, we hired, under your approval, a third-party consultant to provide verified estimate review. And they did that for each project. We have detailed memos containing their considerations and what was discussed for each project in terms of the project estimate. And then there was discussion between the TAC, the consultant, and the project applicants on whether whether each jurisdiction was interested in revising those cost estimates based on the feedback received by the consultant. So in some cases, those project estimates were reviewed and revised, as you can see in the revised estimate after third-party review. In other cases, they were left as submitted for one reason or another that was particular to the applicant. And then at its last meeting, the TAC came to consensus on the project estimates for each project application. And you can see that in the far right side. So the total project cost and the adjusted request, if that was changed. So what we are asking for today, the TAC took action and, as I said, came to consensus and moved forward with a recommendation for your consideration to approve these cost estimates, the revised cost estimates, for consideration in development of the draft 6-year project list and funding scenario. So that means that, assuming you are in agreement that these revised estimates are good and are willing to move forward, we will then take these estimates into consideration as staff works with TAC over the next 2 weeks to develop the proposed 6-year funding scenario and project list, which will then move into the public review period and the action that is, at least at this point, scheduled for your February 23rd meeting. It's all moving in sequence. This matches the roadmap that TAC has been working under for the last 6 months to get these projects ready for public review and comment, and then eventual action. I'd be happy to take any questions. I'm sure Ms. Clark would love to expand on this in the TAC report if there's any additional detailed questions then. But at this point, I'm asking for the requested action that's listed in the agenda.
Okay, before we get to the requested action, are there any questions? Mr. Vice Chair.
It says consultant review or third-party review. Who is the third party?
This time around, we have been working on a project by project RFP process. I can talk about my plans to revise that, yes. So for this round 3, we hired Michael Baker International after an RFP was published last, I guess it was the end of summer. And then there was a competitive process. We reviewed that and that was hired for this round.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Parsons? All right, do we have a motion to approve cost estimates for consideration and development of the draft 6-year project list and funding scenario?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Yes, please. Ms. Scott?
Mr. Hodges?
Aye.
Mr. Atkins?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Reverend Nelson?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Chair Stoney,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Winfrey.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item, B2, is starting on page 16 in your agenda packet. As you know, each year, we work closely with Ms. Farmer and the VDOT team to update our projected revenue estimates. On December 22nd, you can see the letter on page 16, we received the revised revenue forecast from the state, and our staff proceeded to, on page 18, you'll see an updated table. We have been tracking the forecasts on an annual basis. So we can see our adjusted regional forecast in our three pots on the right side of the screen. The adjusted regional forecast, the adjusted local revenue forecast, and the GRTC revenues. As you can see, those forecasts are projected to decrease slightly from the December 2022 forecast. But we are seeing consistent revenues still projected for the sales tax. The fuels tax is the variable that we are continuing to track, as is everyone else. So this is what we have in front of you today, and the requested action as a roll call vote is to essentially have the authority accept the 2023 CVTA revenue estimates from VDOT and incorporate them into the round 3 regional funding scenario.
Do we have a motion? Well, first, are there any questions from Mr. Parsons? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Make the motion.
There's a motion. And seconded. Any further discussion? Ms. Scott?
Okay, Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Atkins,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Nelson, Reverend Nelson.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Chair Stoney,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
and Mr. Winfrey.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
The motion carries. We'll now move on to our next item. For the next item on the action agenda, it deals with the Finance Committee seeking guidance on filling 2 at-large seats for the 5-member Finance Committee held by New Kent County and Powhatan County. Now, it should be noted that Article 2 of the bylaws state that the authority shall consist of the chief elected officer of his or her designee, the governing body, and both New Kent and Powhatan have filled their vacancies of CVTA members for the authority. While Article 3 states that the authority officers shall be annually elected by voting members, and their terms of office are for 1 year until a successor is elected or that person ceases to be the member of the authority. Specifically, in Article 5, under committees, it states that membership of the 2 rotating jurisdictions shall be appointed by the authority, and further, the chair and vice chair of the committee shall be elected by the committee. The CVTA non-binding guidance gives the Finance Committee membership more details, which state that the members appointed to the Finance Committee by the authority should represent the lower populations, and such appointments should rotate among these members in alphabetical order, as well as members should serve terms of 2 years commencing on July 1st of each fiscal year or upon appointment, whichever is earlier, and ending on July 30th of the second year following the date of appointment. Therefore, the discussion is whether the role of New Kent and Powhatan members are to remain on the Finance Committee, or if moving to the next 2 localities in alphabetical order is the next step, and that would be Ashland and Charles City. So, Mr. Carroll, as the acting Finance Committee Chair, I wanted to see if you wanted to provide more information on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, there was discussions held through the Finance Committee at our last meeting as to, how to proceed. One of the things that we felt was important, quite frankly, is that this decision needed to be made by the entire body. I did ask Chet to reach out to the incoming members for both Powhatan and New Kent to see if they had the desire to fill the positions At which time I think it would be up for reconsideration and the reorganization on July 1 of, if I'm correct, of this year. And they did indicate that they were willing to fill those positions on the Finance Committee. And so, I think for the point of the rotation and consistency, and also opportunity for new members to come in and perhaps learn even more about the CVTA than by participating in the Finance Committee. My thoughts were to stay consistent and have actually the members, newcoming members from New Kent and Powhatan take those positions.
And those new members would be Mr. Moyer and Mr. McClung, correct?
Yes. Unless you change your mind.
Not yet.
Okay.
So is there a motion to appoint Mr. Moyer and Mr. McClung as members of the CVTA Finance Committee according to the CVTA non-binding governance guidance document number 3 adopted July 14th?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion,
2023.
hopefully someone will second, and then
Second.
if there's any discussion, give everybody an opportunity.
There's been a motion,
That was
it's
rather
been
quick from
seconded.
Ashland.
Yes, and we support the concept.
Yes, you do. There's been a motion, it's been seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. Also, I think it's our duty also to appoint or recommend the appointments to, or, I'm sorry, when the Finance Committee meets, we'll get together and appoint who the chair and the finance chair will be.
Yes,
And
sir.
that meeting will be?
12th.
The 12th, okay, all right. We'll have some news about that.
Yes.
Informed. All right, we'll now move on to committee reports. First report up, Finance Committee Chair,
I'm gonna defer to Chet. He does such a great job.
Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee, as I shared earlier, is working hard to set up the authority for a smooth decision-making process over the next year. I think that the work that's being done by the Finance Committee right now is critical to ensure that the authority has all the information it needs to make reasonable, deliberate decisions. And we are working closely with PFM, with our new bond counsel, Kaufman Knowles, and the Treasurer's Office in Chesterfield to make sure that all the aspects of the Finance Committee's purview are taken care of. And I'm excited to be able to start mapping out the meetings over the next 6 to 9 months and take into account all the different things that we need to answer for. So the last meeting in January was organized to start to have those discussions about next steps and the actions that might be necessary. And when we get to the February 12th meeting, we will have a timeline that we are working on with bond counsel and PFM in the event that the authority is ready to take any action in the next few months, to have that in front of us to follow and understand all the steps that staff, the legal counsel, and the Finance Committee and the full authority will need to consider. So we're looking forward to that. Be happy to take any questions. I just wanted to reference the financial reports on page 19 of the agenda packet. We continue to see great revenues. We're over 300 million in distributions back to the member governments. So again, another milestone hit. The investment reports on page 20. You can see the FY24 interest earnings. I continue to marvel at the close monitoring that Ms. Longacre and her staff at Chesterfield are doing to make sure that we continue to reinvest available funds. We're focusing at this point on short-term yields. That is continuing to be the highest performance that we're currently seeing. If you look at the top of page 21, you can see the notes there. Our portfolio outperformed all of the benchmarks for November, and the high inflation is why we're continuing to see the short-term yields perform so well. So as funds become available, we are continuing to work with with staff to make sure that those are reinvested and that interest earning continues to rise. Be happy to take any questions.
Any questions from Mr. Parsons? Mr. Davis?
One question about the tax collections and allocations on page 19. I've just noticed at Charles City, there's 2 periods there where they did not receive, and just curious if there's any reason why that looked like that.
Yes, sir. That was, Charles City has been made aware of that, and we've been working with them as well as the treasurer's office to understand the impacts. There was a credit back in July, sometime this past summer, that was a little higher than should have been. So these periods that you're noting in the report were spent to pay back that credit so that we're all square. As of December, we think that is all taken care of, and the moving forward, we're back on the square track.
Understood, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Parsons? Okay, we'll move on to the TAC Committee report. Mrs. Moore Clark.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Diana Moore Clark here, the chair for the CVTA TAC. I will be giving an update based on our TAC meeting held on Monday, January the 8th, 2024 at 1 p.m. Just for a note, the Fall Line Trail Working Group did not meet. And so I will move that update until next month so that I can give you a better update on the Fall Line Trail. But there are also 2 other items, the cost estimate, which thank you for approving today, that TAC worked on at that meeting to finalize, so we thank you. And then also on the agenda is the candidate project database, and so I will defer to those items that have been on their agenda or will be on the agenda. Lastly, we discussed baselining existing project scenarios. So the executive director and staff went through looking at estimates, scenarios based on placing them in the 6-year plan. So when money would be needed, and then how those impacted numbers look for availability of dollars and so forth. So that looked at SPA commitments, updated timelines, and current funding for the existing projects. So staff is being diligent in ensuring that as we move in the fiscal years, that the projects are also adjusted, that the baselines are adjusted accordingly. The main thing, of course, we've been dealing with is the round 3 of the regional funding, starting back in September when the applications were due. We are on schedule in regard to the cost estimate verification going through TAC and now through the full body. It will be, as Chet said, back to this authority at the February 23rd meeting, I think, for the round 3 project recommendations. In that meanwhile, it will also go out for public review, as well as be discussed with the Finance Committee during its February meeting. We are all doing this in hopes to meet with and to have this completed for March when the Smart Scale applications are due. So we're currently on schedule and we are happy about that. I did want to quickly, just for some of our new members, just explain a little bit about the CVTA regional funds. The CVTA funds designated for regional transportation projects are usually estimated to bring in about $65 million per year, and then making that almost a $400 million over a 6-year period. And in order to spend these funds, the state code requires the authority to develop a prioritization process based on objective analysis that considers the benefits of a project relative to its cost. This framework document serves to outline the process for project selection and allocation. The process is being currently reviewed and updated every funding cycle to ensure that we can implement improvements through lessons learned and to remain flexible. So we're always learning, and we are still we're still very much ensuring that the projects that we submit are in line with what the region and the authority intended. Lastly, the project scoring and ranking. Per the state code, all projects requesting CVTA regional funding will be prioritized using a data-driven process that considers benefits and costs. Projects will be ranked within each of the 7 categories based on the benefit to cost score. Ranking with each project category allows projects with similar characteristics to be compared against the others. Project scoring will be conducted by CVTA staff, and it has been conducted by the staff, and the project categories will be scored using the measures that are in our project allocation framework. So I do, if anyone wants to look ahead of the February meeting at the project selection framework as we bring those recommendations forward, we ask you to do that, and so that you will see the technical reasoning behind that selection. And again, we're looking forward to getting those in front of you, and I can take any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions for Ms. Moore Clark? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Moore Clark. Move on to item 3, the project database, which is on page 22. Is there, Mr. Parsons, this is all you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize, the agenda packet I have does not have a page 22. I'm not sure if everybody's is that way. What we are looking at is, this is a planning exercise that staff initiated. What we are trying to do is understand in a ballpark manner the total project need in the region over the next 15 to 20 years. We have asked, this is a TAC exercise that we went through. Every jurisdiction reported possible project needs that everyone was expecting over that time period, so that we can understand a ceiling of possible overall funding amounts that CVTA may be asked to help supply. This is to help us in projecting the funds we have available through our current PAYGO model, as well as potential bonding models, versus what the need actually is. So just to give us a more realistic picture of the regional needs over the next 15 to 20 years. So what you have in the agenda packet, and we'll certainly make this available following the meeting, is a database. There's a page for each jurisdiction, or maybe 2 pages for each jurisdiction, that shows the projects that have been reported in that jurisdiction, the priority timeline, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15 years, and then the estimate, at least in terms of today's dollars, the estimate of what that project might cost. So the bottom line is, we are looking at, in the next 0 to 5 years, a total project need of $2.2 billion. Overall, we're looking at almost $8 billion in the next 15 years. So that gives us the numbers, the top numbers that we are working with as staff and as a technical committee and a finance committee, to understand what we can do and what we can't do as an authority. Just for reference sake, for round 3, the applications, the total ask through all of the applications received was just under $500 million. When we get past the funds that have already been allocated to the 45 projects that CVTA has already approved, we have about $150 million available at this point through our current PAYGO model. So that gives you a picture of the difference, the gap, whatever you want to refer to it as, that we can still try and work towards in the long term as an authority. This is an information item. We're going to continue to be working with TAC to update it as new project needs are identified, as estimates are revised, et cetera, et cetera. But this is something that we wanted to have available for your information, for the public to have available when there are questions about what CVTA is doing, what we've already checked off the list, and the projects that remain in terms of regional priorities. Be happy to take any questions. At this point, I said it's just an information item, but we wanted to make you aware that this is one of the activities that Ms. Clark and Ms. Smith have been leading in terms of the TAC and our ability to provide reasonable, on-time information.
Mr. Parson, the only question I had, as we assume that the project database or the project list candidates projects will expand over the many years, have you undergone an exercise about your staffing needs or the authority staffing needs in the future as well? To match the growing, we're gonna have growing expenditures, are there other staffing needs that go along with that?
Yes, sir, I appreciate that very much. We have not done any staffing needs analysis based on the project database, but as you know, when Finance Committee and the full authority started considering the hiring of an executive director, there were a few models that were developed. We're continuing to look at those, and I think they are still very, very relevant in terms of phasing in additional staffing needs over time. I think now that we have this and understand what bond counsel may require, we can certainly fine tune those and add some more concrete dates to when those hires might be needed. That'll certainly come up later this spring when we talk about budget and operating budget for next year.
The only reason I asked that, I just would not want us to be caught flat-footed as we begin to grow and then we have to all grow all at the same time and then, we're behind. I think our localities have experienced this in the past as well, so. Agency updates?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Hodges?
I noted, and I think the process of defining how much the regional needs are and looking at our revenue stream is important, but I noticed there's no information for Powhatan, so we're a little light on that estimate, so I'm hoping that we'll fill that in. I think it's an important document.
Absolutely. As you know, everybody has a different level of capability right now to focus on visioning, and staff is continuing to work closely one-on-one with each jurisdiction to make sure we do that. We hope to have the project database updated on a regular basis to reflect those needs.
It's a rolling number. Thank you.
I was gonna say, Mr. Parsons, I think in order to make your job easier, I think we need all 9 localities to participate in this visioning process, whether in person at meetings or with their administrations as well, I assume. Yes. It is. Agency updates, Plan RVA, RTPO.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. This is just an information item. It's a new addition to the agenda packet, and I think it's going to be a regular report. The agency updates under reports is really a focus on that connection, and I think Mr. Davis can speak directly to this, the connection between the work that CVTA does and the planning and visioning that happen every day at Plan RVA and at ROTPO. So what you see on page 34 and 35 in your agenda packet is a quick one-pager, two-pager on the work that's happening concurrently at Plan RVA and at the Richmond Regional TPO to complement the work that the authority does and to really provide additional information that helps make your job easier when you're making decisions on funding support and allocations. Again, this is going to be a regular update. If I can, I'll go into other business.
That's pretty self-explanatory. Mr. Davis, did you want to add anything, or?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just I think two things briefly. First of all, when the relationship was kind of formed, there were a lot of folks that worked on both the CVTA and Plan RVA and seeing the similarities there. So I think I need to thank Chair Stoney and Mr. Carroll, who was the chair at the time. We started putting these relationships together, and it seems like it's worked both. So I appreciate both of y'all and your leadership in helping form those relationships. And to your earlier point, it has trickled down to be a substantial benefit to the member localities. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for your help with that.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Parsons, other business?
Thank you. I'm actually going to defer to Ms. Scott again. This is an effort that she's really spearheading, and I think it's a great piece of information for everybody here.
Thank you. We just wanted to link the newsletter in the agenda so that members could take a look at it. If you haven't already signed up for it, it's an opportunity to do so. Just to make everyone aware of it once a month, the link will take you to our newsletter page on the website, and under that will be the most recent edition. We have one that will be coming out, I believe, next week.
And I'll do a quick plug. If any member jurisdictions have any particular stories that you would like us to share and include in the newsletter to highlight local activities, please be sure to pass those along, and we'll work to get those included.
Any questions for Mr. Parsons or Ms. Scott? Member comments? Any comments from the membership? Mr. Moyer?
I have one, and this is, not to be lengthy or not to drag this on, but, New Kent County is very, happy, pleased with the CVTA has done with their, their representation at Miss Page's memorial service. Also, their regarding the naming of the gap, the I-64, their endorsement of that. I like to thank Mr. Davis, who brought it up at the Commonwealth meeting. Also, Secretary Miller, who basically could barely get through the discussion of renaming that or naming that Patricia Page Memorial Highway. And when he asked for a vote, he asked for a standing vote and a moment of silence. And the whole CVT did that. And so that all goes back to what you people have done here with the CVTA and her persistence of getting the gap done. So as I mentioned to Mr. Totten, we may be not real happy in the next 3 years for what we wished for, but after that, I think the whole community of Richmond, the whole area of Richmond, RVA, will be real thrilled with coming through New Kent.
You are exactly right, Mr. Moyer, and thank you for those comments. And I will say that Ms. Page was one of our inaugural members, I believe, of the CVTA. And another great example of, obviously we all have to think locally, but, these opportunities, CVTA specifically, they allow us also to think regionally as well. And I think if you look at the growth of the region in the last decade, it just didn't happen, out of thin air. It took people from different localities coming together, some of us making some sacrifices, and some of us actually, all coming together and collaborating and saying that, we want the region to be better. And that means we have to be at the table. Personalities have to put egos aside and do what's right on behalf of the Richmond Metro. And so Ms. Page is the embodiment of that, and we are proud that that gap will be named for her. And we'll gladly pass a widened highway on 64 through New Kent County and remember her contributions to make this all happen, and that has brought all of us together. Seeing any more comments, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
That's what